82 to 84. And my warmest interaction with Mary is she came over to my house one time to show me how to make gumbo. And I was having some people over for dinner. So she and I went to the grocery store, went shopping. She did all the cooking, and it smells. It was so spicy. I mean, my eyes were just watering, but it was so delicious. You couldn't not love it. And and we had lunch every now and then. But sitting at the switchboard, when she first taught me how to do it, and it was like the hardest thing. It's like eye-to-hand, coordination just wasn't there. Having to plug in all those lines at once, and she did it with no problem, and I just couldn't get it. But cooking with her was like a really big joy for me. We really had a good time. I had friends over. We played jazz, and just it was a lovely evening.
Yes, I'm Leonard Chessman. As mentioned before, I joined the Guild staff as a contract administrator in 1965, and Mike Franklin hired me. And my recollection of Mary, she was there at that time, and I was there throughout until I left in 1982. I always admired Mary. Nobody could, in that old building, nobody could come in without her seeing her. She knew everybody who was coming in. If you sneaked in by the back door, well, maybe she didn't see you, but she had a good view down the hallway there. So she had a pretty good fix as to what was going on. She was a wonderful, warm person. I didn't know her very well, but she was very pleasant to be around. I could always count on a pleasant greeting from her every day when I came into work. And after I left the Guild and I got to some of my subsequent jobs, I was still in a position that I had a business relationship from the Screen Actors Guild, where I worked subsequently with the Writers Guild. So I was over there quite often for meetings of various types, and I would always see Mary there. And again, she always remembered me and remembered me warmly. And what I remember most, and this was probably going back just before I retired from SAG, and I was over at the Writers Guild for a meeting, and I got into a chat with Mary, and she asked me whether I had been in touch with Mike Franklin, and Mike had been a DGA, and by that time he had been retired. And very frankly, I had not had much contact with him, and she put me in touch with him. And I guess as a result of that, shortly after I retired, Mike and I got together for lunch for the first time in many, many years. So I appreciated him. And Mary, again, she was there when I came, and she was still there when I left. And as I say, I saw her many times after I retired, and I'm happy to join in the tribute. And I didn't know her that well, and probably most of you fall into that period after my time. So I will be quiet now and just quietly listen to your stories. Thank you so much for your attention.
I started in 1997. Mary is one of the first people I met. In fact, when I came to interview and they told me to see Mary, but they meant Mary in HR, I thought they meant her. So I walked up to her and said, I'm supposed to see you. And we became friends. I loved her sense of humor. It was really sarcastic. One of my favorite times, I was sitting I would always walk by her desk for the conference rooms were there. And I was talking to her, and somebody came walking through the door, and they looked out the window onto Fairfax, and they said, "Oh, is it raining out?" And she said, "What do I look like, the weatherman?" And that was her personality, and I loved it.
From 1993 to 2019, and I was in the organizing department the entire time. And I guess could I mention what I have to say about Mary, because it's very brief.
Yeah, sure.
All I know is that, our organizing department was right next to the reception area, and people used to wander into organizing constantly. But when Mary was there, she was the gatekeeper, and nobody got past her. And I remember several times people wandering around, and eventually my office was right off the lobby. So they'd come in to see me after Mary left, and I'm not going to name names, but basically, that never happened under her watch because she did her job, and she always had a I felt a sarcastic but great sense of humor. And when she left, we missed her. We missed her dearly because she was like part of the institution and definitely somebody you could count on. You know, in those days when Mary was there and Matt was there, really wasn't as much security. So people would go straight to the third floor no matter who they were meeting with. And now there's much more security. So her job was so important. And as Brian could probably relate, and Anne and others.
So when I started as executive director, I think probably a number of people on the Guild staff had the view. They gave that job to that goofy kid who shows up here as a lawyer, and they did. And I think Mary probably sat on that idea, but I had the sense that she's always thinking, they gave this job to you? Anyway, so I think what that spoke to was her authority and the fact that you knew you had to take Mary seriously, that she was all encompassing in that sense that she was there. And I guess I'll tell one story, which is somewhat, it's more about, well, I'll tell you what it was. I was listening to, on the way into work one day, I'm listening to the NPR radio, and they're telling a story about how people, it was the Olympics was going to be in the United States that particular year, and people had been calling in to the headquarters to get tickets. And some guy calls from New Mexico and calls to the people, I guess in Washington or wherever they were, who were handing out the tickets. And they said, I'd like 6 tickets for the Olympics and such and such. And the guy says, okay, what's your address? And they said, New Mexico. And the person says, well, I'm sorry, you have to apply through the government of your own country. And the person says, I'm in New Mexico. I'm in the United States. I'm in New Mexico. And he says, New Mexico, Old Mexico. You still got to apply through your own country. So I remember I heard that. I thought, well, how stupid. How nobody could get that wrong. So I thought, could they? So when I got off the elevator on the 3rd floor, I went up to Mary. I said, Mary, what country is New Mexico in? And she said, it's in the United States. What's wrong with you? For weeks after that, I would walk through the lobby and she'd say, Brian, the United States. So in any event, so it was all very good natured and very interesting. So, you know, when I think of Mary, I just have nothing but warm feelings really, and the solid feeling that she was part of the furniture in the way like a very much beloved sofa was. You just wanted it there. You knew it was comfortable. You could see it. It was reliable. She was solid. And, you know, I've been thinking a lot about this call and what to say because my memory is such, I don't have a lot of anecdotes about Mary, but just that recollection. And there's something about working in an institution, particularly one that has an altruistic purpose, meaning you're there to serve as opposed to make money for somebody else. Not that there's anything wrong with making money for somebody else, but well, anyway, I've always found that there's more meaning to be in some mission-oriented thing. Is it, and this is sound kind of hackneyed and maybe trite, but there is something akin to a sense of family that arises. It's not quite the same as family because the people that you work with are not as annoying as family members, but nevertheless, you know, you get that kind of a feeling. And then when you move away from it, you miss that. And I'll speak for myself and say that I always miss that. And Marty and I and some others had dinner recently after a very long absence of not being together. And I found myself saying, you know, the one thing that I missed, even though I did some things after I left the Guild, I worked with SAG for a while, and then I did some other stuff, chairman of the board of a hospital, and we worked on various, I never found the sense of family that I found at the Writers Guild anywhere. And that was very fulfilling. And Mary, and some of the people on this call and some of them who are not, and I'm sure those of you who are on the call served that same way. It was not that it didn't have its annoyances and not that you didn't want to punch some people out someday. That's just like a family too, I guess. It was a solid thing. And Mary was a key part of that in my memory. And I respected Mary. I was sorry to hear of her passing, but it's much more important, I think, to remember that she was here. And when she was here, she made a contribution. She was a force of good.
Hello.
Who are we talking to?
Hello, my beautiful people. My name is Ronald Enard. I'm Mary's younger brother.
Okay.
We had 11 children in our family. Mary was number 2. I'm number 10.
Wow.
And all also
Wow.
the call is my baby sister, the youngest of us all. She's number 11, Lisa. She was there with Mary until the end.
Mm.
And we loved Mary so much. I miss her really. I miss all the phone calls and texts, especially during the World Series. She was an avid Los Angeles Dodgers fan.
Ooh, get down.
She loved the Dodgers. And last year, she was treated by a friend of hers named Matt to go to the World Series. That was her, I think, one of her biggest moments in her life, going to see the Los Angeles Dodgers. She loved the Dodgers. She loved the Rams, all that stuff, and all of them won championships just before she passed. I missed all the texts that she would send me at night. She'd call me sometime at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I had to get up to go to work at 4:30 in the past, and she'd say, "Hey, what you doing?" I say, "Mary, I'm sleeping." But, she's on that Los Angeles time, which is 2 hours behind us. And I just miss my sister so much. She was such a sweetheart. And, we all have to leave this old world one of these days. And she fought a good battle, but, and we all loved her, but God loved her more. So we have to cherish the memories that we have for her. And thank you all so much for putting this Zoom call together.
Sure. As Ronald said, actually, Mary was number 3.
Yeah, number 3. I'm sorry. Brothers.
And I'm number 11. Ronald's number 10. And I was just very happy to be with her during her final days. She fought. Mary was very feisty, as I'm sure you all know. She fought a good battle before she left this world. But all I want to say is that she really loved her family. She loved her biological family as well as her guild family. She's very proud to work there, and we knew her as our big sister, Miss Hollywood, because she always told us, she was never going to come back to Louisiana. Go back to Louisiana. I live in Maryland. Ronald lives in Houston. So,
So what year did she move to LA? Well, how old was she when she moved to LA?
she left when I was born to go to Houston. So I was born in 61. I think she went to LA about 63 or 64.
Wow.
And she lived in her apartment complex for 2 years.
Wow.
52 years. So
Wow.
she had a loving family there as well. And they were all there with her to the end, very supportive. And really, she was just their guide, as they say, at her apartment complex. Very good relationships with all her neighbors. And, they were all family. She really didn't have much family she lived in West Hollywood. She didn't really have much family in California. We had one cousin, a couple of cousins, but they were her family away from her family. And all I can say is that, at the end, she talked very highly of her life. She said she had done everything she wanted to do in life. And that's about it. Just wanted to know that she loved everyone that she worked with at the Guild, and she appreciated the Guild giving her the opportunities that it did. She met lifelong friends, and she just loved you all to the end. So thank you for being her family away from family.
The sentiments that I would say about Mary, but I felt the same way as Brian said, that the Guild is my family. And, when I left the Guild, I really wanted to keep in touch with people at the Guild because, like Mary, the people were my family. You see Mary every day. I joke around with her at the desk. Then I maybe go out to lunch and we chit chat a little bit more. And Mary, and it's similar also to Barry, the story you said, she kept in touch with me unbelievably. And we had both been gone, from the Guild. She had been gone for many years. She kept me updated on Jane. She kept me updated on everybody. And I will tell her family, I never told her, when she would be so excited about the Dodgers and that, like, I could care less. But I cheered. I said, oh, I'm so excited, Mary. Wow, they won. I was on the edge of my chair. I wasn't, but for her, because I knew how excited she was, I was always very excited about her reports about the scores and everything. And my recollection of Mary is just the everyday constant of a happy face where we would joke and we would laugh. And I'm trying to think of individual stories, which mostly in my current number have to do with her contact with me, over the last 5 years. But at the Guild, she was just, it's like that we all wanted to be on this call because she was literally the face of the Guild. And she was it. And she had a sense of humor, even with the members who sometimes didn't have a sense of humor when they were coming in with, some grumpy problem or whatever. And she just, with her iron fist and beautiful smile, she just handled everybody. And you could even in employees as well. She just had full reign over the office and of all of our hearts. And she has it today, and she will always have it. I mean, we've lost people at the Guild who don't always get together for them. We love them too. But I think Mary somehow, she touched everybody. Some people were just in departments and we worked with them closely, some of us more than others. But Mary, as you know, as her family, was one hell of a special person that we all will always miss and always love.
I was at the Guild from 93 to 95. I worked with Ed Guston, and I was the relief receptionist during that time. So I knew Mary very well. And we were both Virgos, and that was a big deal to her too. And she assumed that because we were Virgos, we were the same in every way. So that was always an adventure. And I feel as though most of the stories I have about Mary are inappropriate.
Me too.
Oh, come on. We got to have one.
No, overall, though, I think that she's such a caring person. And I think as her being a breast cancer survivor, I felt like she did a lot to educate people. And she was so open about her battle and her mastectomy and so I just felt like she was always educating people, besides knowing everybody who walked in the door, but I just felt like that was a really important thing that she felt passionate about too.
I was at the Guild, started as a law clerk in '83, and I left in 2006. And yeah, it was a long time. And Mary, obviously, those of us who were in the old building as opposed to the new building, and remember the transition from the old building to the new building, Mary in the old building, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but in the old building, if you were coming from the mail room or whatever other room was on that side of the desk.
Yeah.
But I remember sometimes I'd have to go down in the mail room. Oh, that's right, because we would get in credits, because I was in credits and then contracts, we would get deliveries of the ads that we had to review. And I had to be very aware of Mary's mood as I was picking up stuff from the mailroom, because either she would make me stop and talk to her, or she would get mad because I was walking too loud or talking or something. And she would get really annoyed with me. And so I would just be very conscious of, oh, she's in a great mood. Let me talk to her for a while about whatever we were, Dodgers, whatever. But she not only watched my kids grow up, because she would at the new building, they went to Hancock Park across the street, and she would let them in and let them into my office when I was not there. So she would talk to me about how beautiful my boys were, because she was very proud of how they were growing up. She became very friendly with my mom, and because my mother would visit a lot, and she would call me to find my mother, to talk to my mother.
Wow.
And after I left the Guild, she would email me and say, "How's your mom doing? Can you connect us for like?" They would email each other. It was the most interesting thing. And she had the hugest heart. I mean, she absolutely did. But you got to be in the right mood with her. If she was hitting you the wrong way that day, she was going to tell you you were hitting it the wrong way that day. And I'm sure she yelled at a few members a few times and told them,
I'm sure.
Stop calling me about your residual. It's not coming today, kind of thing. And she was a hoot and a half. There was no question. She was larger than life, both in love and in attitude and in everything. She was a force with which to be reckoned.
Mary was at the front desk when Harlan Ellison came in his bathrobe, and
yes,
and
Yes.
and then
He came to
when
see
that
me.
when that other woman had chicken pox, and Mary had to stop her at the front.
I have one of those inappropriate stories that Kim
Tell us,
won't
Marty. Tell us, Marty.
A couple of people have mentioned already, and I certainly am going to join this chorus, that the Guild was really a unique place. I was there from like 1980 to early 90s, I guess, and came out here and started working at the Guild. I was like 25, and like some of the other people on the call, I had to relieve Mary when she would go to lunch. And you knew that if you were going to, if she was going to come back from lunch, where the switchboard was that people have described with the wires and whatnot, there was a little alcove, kind of almost like a closet before you could, there was the reception desk, and then there was this little kind of closet where some of the hardware was to sort of run this unbelievably weird switchboard. And it really was. It was like something out of the 40s. And Mary was obviously great at it. And there was this time when she came back from lunch, and I was at the reception desk, covering for her. And she had come in and she had put stuff down. And when you were in this little alcove, you were kind of out of sight from the reception area itself, although there was a sight line. So she came in and she looked at me, and I was, like I said, I was like 25. We kind of had this connection already because you're relieving her. And she pulls up her sweater. No bra, no top, just her breast. And I was like, oh my God. And I turned red. I turned red so quick. And she sort of knew that was what she was going after. And we just had such a laugh over that. And that was back in the 1980s. So obviously we couldn't have done that today. But it was like Mary's way of just, I guess I had a similar sense of humor, but she just knew how to completely freak me out and revel in the moment as I was turning red. So that was one of my stories. Entrance was actually off of Beverly. And you had to go up this back stairwell, and then you wound up into the Guild and the reception area, et cetera. And at any given point in time, people would be showing up to register their scripts. But most importantly, right around negotiations, people needed to register their scripts to prove that they weren't scabbing or whatnot. So Mary had absolutely no patience for people that would come up the stairs to register their scripts when Blanche Baker was downstairs in that one office. And so
Right.
there was a little
Right.
like sign that said registration department downstairs. And people would come in and you'd be at the front switchboard with her and you would see her come over to the sign when someone came in and said, "Oh, I'm here to register a script." She would slap her hand down and say, "Can't you read?" She always had that like really cool green Volvo. And again, at a time that I was like driving a Ford Falcon, she had this really clean Volvo. And I don't know if any of you had this experience, but if somebody parked in her spot.
Oh, don't do it. Don't do it.
Adam Rodman was just telling us the story, and I remembered it when Adam said it, but somebody was parking in her spot and she went to the car and there must not have been locked. And she opened up the car and there was like all sorts of dry cleaning that had been picked up or whatever. She just like threw them all over the parking lot. And that was Mary. You just didn't mess with Mary.
Yeah, I guess I do. I'm just more affected by all this than I expected. And rather than my memories of her, other than work, are when I would run into her at the supermarket, which happened half a dozen times. After I retired, I was at the Guild from '88 to 2019. And she had retired, of course, by that point. And it was such, I have to say, some mixed feelings about knowing that she and I were going to meet up in this canned goods aisle and just talk for a long time. And that it would be a roller coaster. And it was always a roller coaster. And she was just very hot. She was very cold. I had to really hang on to what point she was making and then say something. But the other part is about her is that those pictures that you put up, and I wasn't there, of her at Dodger Stadium. And she just looked, in all those pictures, she looked so happy. And I don't know if I've ever been that happy in my life, but her smile was huge and she was just having just a wonderful time. And I think that's so wonderful that she could experience that sort of happiness. So that's it.
She had an incredible amount of pictures from the Guild in her collection. I mean, photo albums of kids and members, their children, their grandchildren. I was just amazed going through her things. I was like, wow, she kept all of this stuff. So, yeah.
The other thing that, Gary, you just reminded me of is that, she kept in contact with Jane. And as Jane's health was deteriorating, many of us, I didn't personally go down to LA to visit Jane, although I spoke with her and I speak with Benny often. Mary did. Mary drove there.
I posted a picture on our page of her and Jane together.
And that's a hard thing to do, to see Jane that way.
Yeah.
And if I lived closer, I probably would do it. I feel like a piece of shit because there's Mary who's going through stuff. We didn't know. There she was with Jane, right?
Yeah.
And that's a heart the size of Louisiana. But Mary doing it, now looking in retrospect, because Mary was going through her own health challenges, which I didn't know. But
None of us
she was
knew.
with Jane.
None of us knew.
Nor did I.
None
I
of
didn't
us
know.
She didn't tell Jane.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm not going to take away my time with Jane to talk about myself when I know Jane's going through this, right? Because if there was anyone she would have told, maybe it would have been Jane.
When we started talking music, she actually, and at that point, I was living with a friend from high school in a broken down place in Echo Park. I had heard about a concert that Mick Jagger, of all people, had gone to. And when he was in LA, he would go bar hopping, to see what was hot and what was cool and all that sort of stuff. And then you might read about it after the fact. And I read that Jaggard and I think Keith Richard, they had gone down to Verbindale High School in South Central to see this Zydeco group called Clifton Chenier. So I came back, to the Guild and I said, "Hey, Mary, Zydeco," and she just started to laugh at me like, "You got to be kidding me, Zydeco is in my blood." And so what she did is she wound up taking us. I'll go ahead and share another great photograph. If you can tell which one I am, but you can tell which one Mary is.
Wow.
And this was like, she basically got a group of us all to go down to Verbindale High School, which is at like 100th and Central and South, 100th and South Central. Yeah. And Verbindale was like a Jesuit high school. And they completely like put all the tables off to the side, opened this gymnasium. And this guy, Clifton Chenier, came in and started playing at 10 o'clock at night, and everyone would bring their own alcohol. It was from grandparents to grandchildren. And Mary brought us all down there. We partied. The concert was over, or the dance was over it by like 4 a.m. And then she took us to like, I don't know who she knew, but she took us to a house down there where it was an after show party. So there was Clifton Chenier, Cleveland Chenier, the whole band, Mary, Chicken, Greens, until the sun came up. And that was a night that I will never forget, because I think we just continued to laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. And that was kind of the Mary that, if you were lucky enough to know her off Guild time, again, and it was hard to keep up with her. And I think that she would probably say the same of us, but that was a really special event. And I think we went down there maybe 2-3 years in a row with some other people from the Guild as well. It was a fun night, I'll tell you. And that was the thing that Mary and I shared, and she really helped school me on Zydeco. I really learned a lot about Zydeco music, and maybe Lisa and Ronald want to jump in about Zydeco.
Yeah, and the words that was on there was "Good Time Roll," "Bon Temps Roulé."
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, right.
And it really is nice to see everybody, particularly to meet members of Mary's family and to just have some understanding of that background. And it's very special that you tuned in with us. So thank you very, very much. And to those at the Guild that I knew and those I didn't, it's really good to see. In fact, I think I knew everybody except Barry in one way or another. So, yeah, so that's it. I just wanted to say thanks.
Yeah. Okay, Brian, we'll see you later. Anyone else before we kind of close off then?
I'm heading out.
Just want to say thank you to everyone on behalf of the family. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we will carry Mary with us. We will carry Mary with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
She's
And I'm-
smiling down.
Marty, thank you for doing this, Marty. Really appreciate it.
Great to see everyone, really.
Thank you, Marty.
you.
All right, thank y'all for putting this all together. We love y'all.
Okay, man. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Have a good night.